You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Tonight's account is from a lifelong Oregon local who spent years exploring the back roads and waterfalls of Molalla. This area is known for Bigfoot experiences. It's incredibly known for it. Faint mumbling in the night and ends with something much, much more visceral. What happened between these moments is something you won't forget, and this is the story of Cam and the night the forest decided they were not welcome there. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Cam today. Cam is an individual who's a listener of the show. I'm looking forward to hearing what Cam has to share today about this particular area of Oregon. But welcome to the show, Cam. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a beautiful day talking to people about Bigfoot and other things. And, feel free, Cam, to take us back as far as you need to when all this weird stuff started happening to you. And we'll be right there along with you.
All right. Thank you, Jeremiah. So ever since I was little, I've grown up in the woods, driving around and exploring. My point being, I know a lot of the area. Although there are miles of untraversed land some of us will never see. The sense of mystery and wonder mixes with the realistic expectations of an everyday, quote-unquote, normal life. That's how life used to be for me, normal. The woods were green and cheerful with an overly peaceful feeling, but in the years to follow, COVID hit, fires raged, and burned the once joyful forest. Everything had changed. Gates were put in place. The people in charge said they put these gates in place for our safety. The question is, was it for our safety or to keep something secret buried in the ashes? These gates remained closed for about 3 years. It was December 2023, the day after Christmas. My 4 buddies and I, being a group of teenagers, had planned for 5 months or so to do this camping trip. Food, drinks, and everything we could need. The one buddy had moved down to the coast, so was running a bit behind. My brother and I were at our other buddy's tree farm, waiting to start this exciting adventure. As the car pulled up, my brother and I piled up into the tree farm buddy's truck, and we were off. That day had been kind of cloudy and gloomy. As we're going up the mountain, we had to stop and open one of the aforementioned gates. You see, the gates, they tend to be fake locked, so we drove through this gate and closed it behind us. We were enthusiastic about getting to the camp spot and setting up our tents. Now, the thing about this camp spot is I had never, and I mean never, seen anyone else camp there before or after this. Close to a few waterfalls that run off from a creek to the right. This spot, said to be an old Indian site, also had a gate we closed behind us. We quickly set up our tents and started a fire. Then the rains came, heavy and disastrous. The tarps we had to cover our food had, as it were, little lakes over the top of them. We sat by the fire that night, sharing stories and teenage drama. The next morning, as we woke up, everything was going well, except the one friend from the coast was trying to sleep in. That wasn't going to happen on our watch. So what did we do? We blasted the song TikTok by Kesha. This didn't work all the way, so we shook his tent and yelled earthquake. He wasn't too happy. As per tradition, we tend to drive around and explore the woods. And we're not the type to break tradition. My brother and I got in the car with our buddy who drives a Subaru. We always see animals up there. This time was different. We seen a singular crow. In its talons was a soda can. As we're driving down to our campsite, a singular buck walks out in front of us across the road. So once we got back to camp, we were chopping some wood and just kind of hanging out at the camp spot, telling more stories and listening to, of course, more white girl music. and we were getting ready to start a fire. Once again, per tradition, we always do a night hike. So we did our hike and got back to camp. As we sit by the fire, we're listening to more white girl music, Kesha, Miley, etc., blaring and echoing through the valley. I'm sitting there and hear a faint mumbling through the music. I tell my buddies, they laughed at me. I told them to turn down the music, so they did, the faint mumbling now clearer and coming from the tree farm buddy's truck. We grabbed our knives and axes and slowly walked towards the truck. We opened the door quickly and stepped back. A voice said, "Low battery, please charge. Low battery, please charge." It was a walkie-talkie. We laughed it off and went back to the fire. As we sat there, the tree farm buddy yelled out, "Marco," expecting Apollo to come back. And nothing. The trees around us enclosed us. The moon was now full. The shadows danced around the ground, and branches started breaking, as if we weren't tripped out enough. My brother and buddy from the coast started saying, "Skinwalker, Skinwalker, Skinwalker." We told them to shut up. My buddy, who had a Garmin tracker with him, due to no internet, as we looked at it, we're standing completely stationary. And the arrow on the Garmin started moving all on its own. I don't know if that's normal or not, but the arrow said we were 100 feet off to the right of where we were standing, which was in the middle of this creek right by our camp spot. And so it moving by itself, it was taking a weird looking pattern, and it was in the form of a Christmas tree. And this was the day right after Christmas. So it's just kind of tripping us out. So as we're over by the fire, we move away from where we had just looked at the Garmin and seen that weird pattern on the Garmin, and we move back over towards the fire. And the tree farm buddy, he was disappointed because he wanted to spend Christmas listening to Christmas music, getting presents, all that kind of stuff. And so he's like, "Oh, you guys won't mind if I play some Christmas music, will you?" And so we told him, "Go ahead. If it makes you, happy, go ahead and listen to Christmas music." So he turns on his radio, the speaker, like the radio on his phone. I guess that would be his playlist. And the first song that comes up, it sounds joyful. And we start listening to it. But then all of a sudden, the lyrics take a drastic turn. It's Weird Al's song called "The Day Santa Went Crazy," which is like about Santa Claus being a serial killer. And so we tell him to quickly turn off, the radio, because we're freaked out. And he accidentally turns it up. So now that music is just blaring louder and louder than before. And we're freaking out, yelling at him, "Turn it off, turn it off." And he's trying to, and finally gets a hold of being able to turn it off. And so we heard branches snapping off in the distance, and they started out kind of faint and far away. And we thought, "Oh, okay, it's just, an animal running through the woods or whatever." Except they started to get closer and closer towards where the fire was. And I know that the Native Americans have legends that talk about how if you stay by the fire, you're safe as long as there's white ash or ash around you. It's like a protection, from what I understand. And so I said to all my buddies, I said, "If you guys want to pray, now would be the perfect time." And so everyone started praying, hoping that everything was going to be all right. And the one buddy who owns the Subaru, he looks at me and he says, "Cam, I was just praying and I asked the Most High if there was something out here with us, if he would point me in the direction of that thing." And when I opened my eyes, I was facing this giant cedar tree. And so we took our flashlights and shined it up at the cedar tree, and there was something up in the tree. And all of a sudden it started hooing, So we figured, oh, it's probably just an owl. But after watching some of your videos, I've noticed that like a whooping and a hooing noise is a like connected to Bigfoot, the Sasquatch. And so my brother, he just wanted to sleep. He was tired, wiped out from that day, and he was in the tent like, guys, just go to bed. And we're all tripping out because these sticks keep snapping off in the distance, and it's getting louder and louder than before. And so it got so bad to the point where if you had to go out and go pee, you couldn't go out without someone watching your back and shining a flashlight for you. Like, we were scared we were being watched because ever since the fires, it felt like there were eyes out there watching you. And as we were getting ready to, you know, turn in for the night, we decided we'd stay up and see what else happened. And of course, the branches were getting closer and closer, the sounds of the snapping. And we figured we can't go to bed. So we tore everything down that night. And this is at like 12:45 in the morning. And my brother was so upset that we just didn't stay the night there. We forgot that there was this other gate that we had blocked for our camp spot because there's a smaller gate for our camp spot. And we went and opened it with our knives and axes in hand and then ran back to the truck in the car and all piled up. The truck was in behind and the car was in front. And the one tree farm buddy, he's like, whatever you do, do not stare into the woods. Well, of course, I stared into the woods and the darkness was staring back at me. And the Subaru was in front. Well, we had that other gate that we were behind. We were the only people up there. And behind this other gate, the Subaru's parked. And the two buddies, the one from the coast and the one who owns the Subaru, jumped out and ran to go open the gate. My brother in the back seat just stumbling out like, come on, guys, too early in the morning for this. Tired. And so we're driving down past the gate as fast as we can. And there's kind of a pull-off sort of area. It's like a Y in the road. And we figured we'd make a plan of what we were going to do because we didn't want to wake our parents up. This is like 1 a.m. now. And so we pull off to this spot and we roll down our windows and start talking. This spot where it's situated, there's a straight drop off cliff right on the right side of the road. And then on the left side of the road, there's like a straight cliff as well, but that one goes up rather than down. So on the left side of the road, you've got this cliff that goes straight up, and there's like all these trees that surround the area, and then the right side, straight drop down cliff. And as I'm sitting there in the truck, I see something, and it's slowly coming up the drop down side of the cliff, the right side of the road. And whatever it is, it's huge. It's kind of blurry at first, and all of a sudden, as it's crossing the road, I can see it clearer. It's a huge dog, and its fur looks like something like a coyote. It's like a brownish gray with reds mixed in and everything. And this dog is probably about 3 feet tall, standing on all fours. Like its back, and just from its paws to its back is probably about 3 feet. And this dog looks at us and starts running directly towards us. And so we're freaked out and we're like, we're not staying for this. So we book it out of there. And the dog chases us down the road. No collars that we could see. I don't know that it belonged to anyone. It was down on the side of that cliff. And so we're driving into town, and it's kind of a smaller town, like 10,200 people live here or something like that. I mean, there's been a little bit more in the past few years because we've been getting new people, and the town's getting built up. But as we get into town, we decide to go to the Tree Farm Buddy's grandpa's shop. It's situated right in the center of town, and he's got a gate that has like a padlock. So I get out and I put in the combination. The Subaru pulls in behind us. Mind you, this is probably about 1:30, 1:45 in the morning now. And so we get the gate open. We pull in. The Tree Farm Buddy, he's got a key to the shop because this is his grandpa's shop. And as we pull in, a third car out of nowhere pulls in behind us. And we're tripped out. And we're like, okay, that's kind of weird. Well, as we get out of the truck and the cars, we see that this third car is a cop car. And so the sheriff came over and talked to us, and he's like, you guys do realize there's a curfew? And we had no idea there was a curfew. And he asked us what we were doing out. And we said we had went camping and we got scared and came back down to town. And so as he's talking with us, he says, what were you guys scared of? And we laughed and he laughed. And we said, you're never going to believe us. And so he said, try me. So then we proceeded to tell him a little bit about our story, and we told him we believed we had heard or seen a skinwalker. And he laughed at us, and then he said, yeah, growing up out here where we all grown up, you either seen a skinwalker or you heard one out in those woods. And he said that when he was a kid, him and his buddies had gone out camping, and they had encountered one out there, and they had heard it, what he described as being a skinwalker to us. And so then what the Tree Farm Buddy had forgot to mention is that he believed that the shop that he was taking us to was haunted because someone had had an accident in the shop and not made it out. And so the cop took everyone's information and, said, if anything ends up going missing, we'll know who to call, and we'll tell your grandparents that it was you and blame it on you. So then when we're in the shop, there's kind of an eerie vibe in there because we had just heard that story, but we didn't think too much of that. We were more concerned about what we had just encountered in those woods. And so yeah, that's one of the things that we encountered in the woods. And that was December 26th into the 27th of 2023. So that same camp spot, like I said, I've never seen anyone camp there, and to this day I still have never seen anyone camp there. In July of 2024, July 19th, my aunt had come to town, and she wanted to go and hike. So we went to the falls that's close to the camp spot with her. And as we're driving there, she was asking, she said, so do you believe in Bigfoot? And I said, I do believe in the possibility that he could exist. I've experienced a lot of crazy things. And so we got to talking about it, and I asked her if she believed, and she said, yes, to an extent, she believes that he could be real. And as we were hiking through that area, I make sure to always take pictures of all this stuff. I got pictures of the Garmin, and July 19th, that day, when I was getting pictures, I took it home and looked through my pictures, and I noticed something out of the ordinary, and it looked like a portal, like a portal that had opened. And I got that on camera right in front of this waterfall that was supposedly an old Indian site. And I know that some tribes here in North America believe that a waterfall can be seen as a portal to another realm. I've also heard some people think that Bigfoot is interdimensional. I'm not exactly sure about that, but it's quite interesting. And So then I sent it to my aunt, and she was kind of skeptical, but she thought that was quite strange too, that we caught that on camera. And then September 1st of 2024, we were up in the same area. It was a little bit past the falls and everything, and past the creek. But everything up there is gravel, and log trucks go through, they smash up the roads, and there's like the normal gravel that we're used to down here, and then there's the thicker logger gravel that they have up there, but nothing up there is paved. And so when we're going up there, we're most weekends in the summer and stuff, we go up and explore things and adventure around. And everyone in town that you meet, they have a story, or they know someone who has a story about weird things they encounter up here. And so September 1st, 2024, we were going up into the woods right above, like I said, that creek in that camp spot area. And there's this road that we had never noticed before. We had been up in this area quite a few times, but this road, what was off about it was it almost looked like it was a cement road or like asphalt. And so we thought that was kind of weird because it's in the middle of nowhere. And we decided to get out and check it out. Well, the road was all overgrown with branches and trees and logs and everything. We could drive a certain extent down this road, so we decided to. The car again scratched up and scraped, and as we're getting out of the car and walking down, we noticed there's bear scat, and so we're cautious about it, but we decided to keep going. And we follow this road to its end, and then there's this big heaping pile of like asphalt that's all piled up. And we're like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like, why does the road just end? What would be the point in building it up here? And so we went to the other side of the asphalt and looked down, and at some point in time, there was this huge, giant, like landslide, and it had completely torn apart the valley. We suspected that the road had continued, but it had been destroyed because of this landslide. And so we look down in the valley below, and we see there's probably about 14 deer. And that, like, it was a crazy thing to see because all these deer are everywhere. They're running around, except for this one that's right in the center of the valley. And we're looking at it, and there's something weird about its hindquarters. Like, it's just off. And the weird thing about it was that it was just stationary. It wasn't moving whatsoever. And as we're staring at it, we're there for about 15 minutes, and it still hasn't moved. It hasn't blinked. It hasn't done anything. And so we thought, oh, maybe it's like a deer, like one of those ones you shoot with archery, or you take your rifle and shoot it or whatever, like a target. But we're pretty sure it's not a target because of where it's situated. It's in the middle of a valley, and the only way down is falling. Like, you can't cross through or anything. And so I went home and researched. The name of the road came up on our road map, like in our car, our GPS. And so using that, I found out that that road used to connect all the way to Sandy, and that you could drive through all the way to Sandy. And it was just wild seeing that deer there and it not moving for 15 minutes. And it still wasn't moving by the time we left. We just left 15 minutes later because we have two dogs, and they were freaking out and barking at it the whole time, and it didn't budge. Whereas all the rest of the deer, they fled, they ran through the valley, through the canyon. So anyway, back to the creek spot and the falls. So this year we decided to go out May 4th. with another buddy. It was my brother, another buddy, my mom, and I. And we were just checking up on the camp spot. Like, we tend to go through our old camp spots and see what's changed and see what's new and everything. And we got out and we were walking the dogs around, and my brother points something strange out. So I go over to where he's at, and there's this footprint that's kind of in a muddy area, except the mud had all hardened. It was dry. And this footprint was, we measured, it was 4 inches dug down into the dirt. And I tried to push my boot into the ground next to it, and I couldn't, because that's how hard the dirt had like solidified. The mud had solidified around this thing, 4 inches down. And I measured the footprint, and it was 14 inches long. So we thought, whatever it was, it has to be heavy to push down that hard. Because it was a newer looking print, but the mud was probably a week and a half, 2 weeks old. So we thought it was kind of strange. And I've got pictures of that as well. The footprint, it was just off, because there was only one print out of the whole entire area, and it was 4 inches deep and 14 inches long. The way the toes are, it's like a really thin footprint. I don't know what would make a print like that, but it was just off. There was something about it. So we got pictures standing next to it, and that area up there is just off. Like, it's wild up there. There is definitely the stuff that legends are made out of up in those woods. And so I've been doing a little bit of research into like names and stuff, because in my opinion, names have meaning. And so I looked up what is the origin of the word Oregon. And according to the old Spaniard maps of like the 1600s, they compared it to the word Patagonia, which translates to Bigfoot or big feet, which is just mind-blowing to me because of all of the stories I've heard of people encountering big feet in this area, especially here in Oregon. And the Native Americans around here, they have legends of tribes that had giants that were anywhere from 7 to 9 feet tall. And not just giants, the people of Oregon City, so that would be like the Clackamas people, the Willamette, the Chinook, all those tribes, they talk about Sasquatch, but they have a different name for him. It's Skookum or Skookums. And they said that Skookums was anywhere from 9 to 11 feet tall. He was huge. He was hairy, just like how Sasquatch is described, and like had a bad odor, all that kind of stuff. But that the Indians were fighting these creatures, and that in these fights they ended up burying them in their burial sites, and then the bones were rediscovered in the 1930s and then sent off to the Smithsonian. Not only are they called Skookums, but some of the people, I know the Nez Perce tribe and some of the ones closer to us, the coast people too, they call them the stick people. And they say when you go out in the woods, you have to watch out for the stick people. And it's just all very wild. There are a lot of legends in this area that get either destroyed or covered up, forgotten the history. Some people have forgotten the language, and so through that, the history is not preserved. When I was doing some research on like Tillamook area, Um, so the day after the camping trip, I was supposed to go hiking with another buddy, and we ended up going to Three Rocks. Um, it's like supposedly where there's pirate treasure. It's got Goonies stuff related to it, like the real basis for the Goonies movie. A ship from 1623 called the Santo Christos de Burgos, and this ship was carrying beeswax and porcelain, and it was blown off course in 1623 when it was coming through. And it's said to have landed somewhere in Oregon. The Clatsop Indians, they talk about how they would trade porcelain and beeswax to the other tribes around. But they talked about how when the ship crash landed, there were all these people that they had never seen before. And they would have been like Spaniards and the Spanish, except for one person that was on the ship that was 8 feet tall and described as a black man. The Clatsop Indians had never seen Spaniards or black people before from these accounts from the 1600s. And so they worshiped them like gods. And then they came in with all their treasure and they supposedly buried it up in those woods in Tillamook, Clatsop area. So the day after all the weird stuff happened to me, I got up at like 5 a.m. and went with a buddy to go hiking over in that area. And as we're going up the ridge, the one buddy, he points out, "Oh, look, there's elk out there by the sea." And there was a whole herd of elk, and he was focused on the elk. And the other people that were with us, they were focused on the elk too. But I looked out on the horizon, and I noticed what looked like a black dot. And so I had taken pictures of it and pointed it out to them, and they kind of just, "Oh yeah, sure," thought I was kind of crazy. So I took a picture of that spot and I zoomed in, and it looked like a ship, but it was like all torn apart. And apparently right there in that area, there are rumors of ghost ships and legends of pirate ghosts and ships that have crashed. There's at least 2,000 shipwrecks right there in the Columbia Spit from the Salmon River right by Three Rocks. And so not only that, but out my backyard, in the field right across from me, it's said to be an old Indian trading ground of the people that used to live here. And so they would come through and trade all their stuff to the pioneers and the settlers who had moved here. And it's just crazy to think about, like, these people were here not that long ago, and there's no trace of them because their history has been forgotten. They've been sent to reservations, all that kind of stuff. But the property just across from my house, there was one night my mom and I were watching The Twilight Zone, and my little brother, of course, he was trying to sleep, and he yelled and said, "Did you guys hear that?" And we said, "Hear what?" "We're watching The Twilight Zone. What do you mean?" And he said it sounded like a rooster, like a chicken, a rooster. And it was 12:30 at night when we were watching The Twilight Zone. And we're like, "What are you talking about?" "No, we didn't hear it." And so he said, "Turn off the TV and open the window and listen." So we opened the window, we turned off the TV, and we were listening outside. And sure enough, once again, that rooster noise, this time we heard it though. So we went outside with flashlights, and I was standing on our porch, which is probably about 3 feet off the ground, and I'm 6'4". So as I'm standing on the porch, I look out in the field, and there's something standing there. Whatever it was probably making this noise, and it was up to my shoulder. So that would put me at 9'4", so that would put it at like 8 feet. Whatever it was, its eyes, I could see they were glowing. wasn't able to get a picture of that, but I did see something out there in this old Indian trading ground, and it was crazy to witness that.
Cam,
Yeah.
you have been through a lot, man. Wow, this is absolutely incredible. What color? Do you remember what color the glowing eyes were?
Um, if I remember correctly, they were like a yellowish kind of greenish color, like
Gotcha.
um, like a neon kind of yellow green color.
Have you ever gone out to that field to see if there's any tracks or anything weird out there, or is it really a spot where you can't just walk into?
I can walk into it. I haven't seen any prints as of yet. Um, but now the neighbors are building on it, so they've got a new driveway and they've got a new house going up. So the likelihood of being able to go back over there, it's not going to happen. I won't be able to go over there again because new neighbors.
Do you think they know what they are building on top of?
I do not know. See,
Yeah.
who told me about the how it was an old trading ground was an I heard it from a neighbor who heard it from a neighbor. So the neighbors across from me, they were talking with the neighbor who lives down the street, and he was 95. So he was actually there trading with the Indians back in the day as a kid with his dad and his brother. And so he was the one that told us that it was a trading ground, and his own grandkids didn't believe him. Um, but I have found some stuff just in our yard. We'll find pieces of obsidian that have been chipped in flint, like pieces of flint, chipped obsidian, um, and some other stuff that we found that proves that yes, this was a trading area, or at least there was Indian activity right here.
I'm not surprised at all that you're seeing something like that out in that field that's 8 foot tall with glowing eyes. My goodness, dude. Wow. Hmm.
Yeah, it's wild. And you know how I was telling you about like Tillamook earlier? I forgot to mention when I was doing my research into Tillamook and that kind of area, there's a story. Um, are you familiar with Fort Stevens? Like the old, I think it's called a Bastion Fort. It's a Civil
No.
War kind of star fort kind of an idea. And so Fort Stevens is down on the coast. It's in Astoria, right where the Goonies was filmed, all that kind of stuff. And there's this legend just up the way. There's a spot called Point Adams, and the Native American legend goes something like there was this Indian who had his dog with him, and they would camp up at Point Adams. And one day, this mysterious creature came out of the woods, described as 9 feet tall, hairy, called the skookum, so equivalent to what we think of as Sasquatch according to the natives. And the skookum was trying to get him to feed him, like, oh, can you share your food? You're hunting that, like the game that you hunted. Can you share your? I can't remember what it was. It might have been a deer or a rabbit or something. Just, can you share your game with me? And so the Indian said, "Yeah, sure. Like you're kind of an unwelcome guest, but sure, I'll share with you." Well, he knew that this skookum wasn't going to be satisfied with a rabbit or some deer. He knew that the skookum was going to try and eat him. At least that's how the natives tell it. They say that they wanted human meat. And so he told his dog, this Indian told his dog, he said, okay, when the skookum comes to try and eat me, you point him in the opposite direction of where I went. This Indian had been digging a tunnel from Fort Stevens area, like Point Adams, all the way to Tillamook, which, if you're not familiar with that area, that's a pretty long distance. That's like a couple 100 miles or something like that. So this Bigfoot creature goes up to the dog and says, "Where'd your owner go?" And the dog pointed this Bigfoot in the opposite direction, going upriver rather than following where this Indian had just gone down the other way. And there's supposedly, according to the legend, a tunnel system right there that this Indian had dug out and made, and his dog sat on top of the tunnel system so the skookum or Bigfoot couldn't find him. It's just wild, like researching the area and seeing all the different stuff that is right out our back door that people call you crazy for because they may not have experienced, or they have experienced, they just didn't believe that it actually happened.
It's incredible what you're doing. From what I know, not many people in the younger generations are researching the old legends like you are, and I say hats off to making sure that those do not die with the older generations. For example, how you were talking to that 95-year-old neighbor to get that information. It's very important that things are documented. I'm sure a lot of listeners are wanting me to address this 42 minutes in. We are not saying where this general location in Oregon is, correct?
We can if you want.
I mean, it's totally up to you. I'm fine with it either way, but it's totally up to you.
All right. This is in Molalla, Oregon territory.
Absolutely. 100%. When you told me that before the show started recording, I was like, yeah, 100% that area. And then after hearing you tell me everything, that area is wild. I'm not surprised that you're hearing so many, stories from your neighbors about other things that have happened, and I focus more on Bigfoot, but to hear your other stories of high strangeness in these areas are just, I mean, mind blowing. I mean, it's definitely more than just Bigfoot in these areas, but the things you've experienced, the 14-inch track, and actually seeing an 8-foot tall creature near your house in the field is just wild. Have you been writing down the stories that you've been hearing from neighbors? Have you been hearing other Bigfoot related things?
I have heard from another neighbor. They told me a story about they had an older house, and this was before they remodeled and everything. And she had said that one night she was hearing weird noises coming from the back of their field, and they're just across from me, keep in mind. And so they were telling me some stories about how they had encountered, looking through their window, something that was about 8 feet tall and had glowing eyes as well. But this was back a long time ago. She said this would have been probably 2012, 2011, somewhere in there. She said that she was hearing a weird noise coming from the kitchen, so then she went to the kitchen to go see if there was anything out there, and she didn't see anything. So then she went back to her room, and her husband was sleeping, and she noticed something kind of glowing on the outside of their house, and she thought that was weird, and her husband was completely sound asleep. So she went and opened one of the blinds, and opening the blind, she seen this 8-foot tall figure looking through their window, staring at her, and she was freaked out and tried to wake up her husband. Well, by the time she got him awake, it was already gone. but she did say that she had encountered that.
That's absolutely incredible. My goodness. And I had talked to you a little bit before. I haven't talked a lot about my Oregon trip yet from this last July 2025. I did end up driving from Sisters through Detroit all the way up through Silverton, Molalla, Estacada to Sandy, went to the North American Bigfoot Center. The maps do not do it justice. When you are driving into that area, my goodness, I was completely unprepared for it. You start to go up in elevation, and if you're not used to it, then you got to be prepared. And it gets wild, wild, wild up there. Words fail me. All these stories that you hear about Malala and Colton and Estacada, Scotts Mills, it's wild territory. It's absolutely wild territory. So, I mean, you're in the middle of it, dude. I mean, hats off to you for trying to keep the stories alive by talking to people.
Thank you. Yeah, Molalla is definitely a crazy place. And like I said earlier, everyone, well, mostly everyone here either knows someone who's encountered something or have encountered something themselves. It's definitely a very wild place. I feel like a lot of people might be kind of on the scareder side to tell their stories because they feel like they might become a laughing stock or no one would believe them. But I feel like if you've got a story to tell, it needs to be heard. And you mentioned the like Bigfoot Society in Boring.
The North American Bigfoot
Society.
Center. Yeah,
that one. I've been there, and it's pretty wild there too. Seeing all the prints that they have with the like they poured the mix and everything, and then they put those up on the wall so you can see the prints that some people have found from around here, and just all sorts of stories there too.
100%. I mean, I would definitely recommend people check that out if they haven't already. But wow, what a cool collection of stories that you've collected already, Cam. And I hope that you are definitely writing them down somewhere. As you get older, you might not be able to. Maybe you got a really good memory though, but it's always a good idea to write stuff down just in case. But dude, I just say thank you for coming on the show. I want to make sure that you were able to share everything that you had come to the show to share today.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more crazy stuff. Like Chief Joseph, for instance, he hadn't found, but he was passed down through his family a stone. It wasn't a very big stone, and when he had been taken into captivity, he had his medicine bag around his neck, and the soldiers, they were talking with him, and he said, "Before I go into captivity, I've got this stone that was passed down through my ancestors. It started with my white ancestors and was passed down to me. It's from long ago, way before me." And so he reaches into his medicine bag and pulls out this stone, and it was a Assyrian cuneiform stone, and it was a receipt for like buying sheep and lamb from, they suspect, Babylon. And he said that this passed down through his family, and so then it got, of course, taken and sent to, I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's a military school, something point, maybe I'm not exactly sure where, but it's over in like New York and New Jersey or something like that. Um, but he had an Assyrian stone that he was keeping in his medicine bag. In this medicine bag, the interesting thing about that is they date this stone to about 2040 BC. So then that was in like 1898, I believe. I might be wrong. But in 1963, this lady in Georgia, she was out digging in her yard and found a cuneiform tablet from Assyria from the same time, 2040 BC. And this tablet was also a receipt for a lamb or a sheep. And so then at the same time in Britain, they found a cuneiform tablet just like the other two, except this one was an account of someone who lived 60 miles away from Babylon. And he said that he seen the destruction of Babylon from a four-tailed comet. And so describing a four-tailed comet, it's interesting to note that Chief Joseph's medicine bag, there's pictures of him wearing his medicine bag, and he's got what looks like a four-tailed comet on this medicine bag that he kept this Assyrian tablet in. So yeah, that's another wild story.
So you working through finding all these legends and stories, do you have a goal that you're trying to accomplish with all this, or is it more maybe just to make sure you keep everything alive?
Well, in doing this, I hope to keep all these legends alive, but also I'm a little bit of a history nerd. You can ask any of my friends or family. I'm definitely a history nerd, and it's just interesting to see how close we are to the people of our past, but at the same time, how far apart we are from them. And also to see what part of history has been left out and what's been taken away. That people don't know about, and the people that do know about this part of history aren't really supposed to talk about it, because a lot of the stuff that we have here, that was found here, has been taken and moved to the Smithsonian or Washington, D.C. and New York. So the stuff that belongs here, I'd say, has been put in a basement or a vault somewhere hidden. They just recently had found that stone, and that story about Chief Joseph, it would have been in the early 2000s. They were going through all the stuff in the basement at that academy, that military academy, and they had found that in the basement and then retold the story. So I guess it's to preserve the history and to make sure that the legends that once lived are still living.
100%. Cam, are you an individual where you would want to be contacted by people, or you're fine with doing your research and kind of being in the shadows?
I'd prefer to be kind of like an independent, just, doing my research and stuff. But if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Gotcha. We'll keep that in mind. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Cam, and for sharing all the events of high strangeness that you've shared or that you've experienced, but also some of the older legends that you've uncovered as well. And I appreciate you coming on and chatting today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Just wanted to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Cam's story is the kind that sticks with you, not just because of the strange prints that were seen or the chilling noises in the cedar tree, but for the way the woods themselves seemed to close in that night. And huge thanks to Cam for sharing his memories from Molalla and for reminding us that Oregon's forests hold more than just trees. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new episodes, and share this one with a friend who's into Bigfoot, the Pacific Northwest, or just a good old-fashioned mystery. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you're following the show there. And if you'd be willing to leave us a 5-star positive review, it really helps the podcast grow. If you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter, especially in Oregon, around Molalla, Clackamas County, Tillamook, I'd love to hear from you. Really, if you've had anything happen anywhere in the world, let's hear it. Send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's talk about it. If you haven't seen yet, we do have a brand new membership community. So if you're on YouTube and you're like, hey, where are the ad-free episodes? They're over at bigfootsocietypodcast.com and hit the members login area. There you can join a community where there's members-only episodes, ad-free, early release episodes, and a way to hang out with people that are into Bigfoot as much as you are. So we'll see you over there. We'll see you on the inside. Thanks again for following the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.